hope, the kind that actually sustains you through the ups and downs, guess what? It only gets revealed when? In the doggone storm. When I talk about a legacy of meaning, I'm really talking about your legacy of hope. How do you pass on your hope? I'm going to suggest with this morning, there's 3 blueprints. Let me say it that way. The first thing is, dispensers of hope, remember God's faithfulness. David says in Psalm 71:5, "For you have been my hope, sovereign Lord, my confidence since my youth." Notice what David's doing. What David is doing is he's looking back, and as he looks back, he's seeing where all the fingerprints of God have been upon his life. And so as he looks back, he's remembering God's faithfulness. Dispensers of hope live with the challenges and difficulties of today and the uncertainty of tomorrow with hope. Because when they look back, and some of us have a long history and some of us have a short history. But when they look back, they're able to see God's fingerprints. And I'm going to ask Doris to come and share with us for just a moment some of those fingerprints that she has seen in her life.
You know, when he asked me several days ago if I would say something, I said, sure, I can witness for my Lord anytime. But since then, I began thinking back over my life. I've been coming to church, I guess, as far back as I can remember. When I was 4 or 5 years old, coming to Sunday school, it seemed like my life, all of my life has been in the church. And I thought about the people that have gone ahead of me. I thought about some of the couples that's been long dead, but I think of them and they influenced my life. And I thought, how can I influence a life? I'm just living my life day by day, just like you all are. I hope that my smile or my word or my action is positive to all of you. I'm always saying to people, I must be God's favorite child because he's so good to me. And then I told my brother that, and he said, no, I'm his favorite child because he's so good to me. And I'm sure each one of you can say, I'm God's favorite child because he's so good to me. And I thought, I can raise my hand as a witness to God's faithfulness. And I thought, who here can raise their hand as a witness to God's faithfulness? Bless you all.
So I love this. I love that sentence, that statement, I'm God's favorite, right? Because he's been so faithful to me. And then what a great competition, right, to have, in a good spirit. No, I'm God's favorite. God has said, you're the apple of my eye. You're my beloved daughter, my beloved son. And we are able to camp on that because we know that God is faithful. So dispensers of hope, right, they remember God's faithfulness. The second thing that dispensers of hope do is they rely on God in the present. David said this, do not cast me away when I'm old. Do not forsake me when my strength is gone. That's not just a prayer from old age. I don't know if you've had experiences in your life where you've just I have no strength left. I don't even have the strength to tie the knot at the bottom of the rope. I'm just going to slide right off into this pit. But dispensers of hope, what they remember is I don't need to do this by my strength. I don't need to rely on my own ability to figure this stuff out. I can trust God. If remembering God's faithfulness anchors us in the past, relying on him keeps us steady in the present. So this morning, I've also invited Manu to come and share with us what it's been like for him to rely on God's strength when he felt like his own strength was giving out.
Things have just been really tough for us as a household. We've been struggling financially, like a lot of us have, and we're really worried because my wife might be losing her job in the next couple months, which is what we've relied on to get by through these last few years. And my mother-in-law was diagnosed with cancer about 2 years ago, and she just entered her last stage of treatment. So some of you don't know what that means. And so that's been really tough. And things have not really improved for my oldest daughter as well. Some of you know we adopted a 17-year-old at the time who's now just turned 26. So, and so we've been supporting her as well. And so constantly throughout life, I've been reminded that just because we follow God doesn't mean things get easier. I constantly ask God for help and support, and I don't always feel like I get it. And this is one of those reminders that I've gotten from my mom, that just because God doesn't seem like God answered that prayer, it just means he's asking you to become a little bit stronger as you're waiting for that answer to come. And through that waiting, I have realized I've had to rely on who God is and be faithful. Sometimes I feel like finding God and relying on God is like trying to find your keys in a dark room. You ever have to wake up in the early morning hours and the lights are all off and you can't figure out where your keys are, even though you keep them in the same place every single time? And you get up and you start looking around and you just bump into everything, but you know eventually you're gonna find them because the keys are real. You put them there. And I feel like that's what finding God for me has been like a lot of times. I know God's there. And I know once I get my keys, I'm gonna be able to do everything I need to do. And it's just what it is. I have to just wait on God because I know God has been there, because through all of my life struggles, God has been present. Because through those same struggles, I've been led here to this congregation. And our family's been led here to this congregation. You guys have supported us and loved us. You guys have been one of my keys that have supported me through the trials and the struggles.
So real quickly, for the two blueprints that we've talked about, dispensers of hope, right? When we talk about, hey, can you share with someone why you have the hope that you have? The first point is, am I able to look back? Do I have a history of faithfulness? And I know when Doris asked you to raise your hand, you raised your hand. Many of you did that. Some of us, it might be just starting today. This is my beginning point. Some of us, for a while, we had to borrow someone else's faith story. I know that's how it was for me for a while. I was like, I haven't had those experiences, but I believe in you. And because I believe in you, your story means something to me. So the second thing is that we are able to rely on God's strength. We all can sit here and know that, hey, no matter what, the yogurt's going to hit the fan. The question for us is, in the midst of that, when all of that happens, our hope is going to be built on a place where we learn to rely on God's strength and not our own. The third point I want to share with you for what it means to be a dispenser of hope is we record our testimony for the future. David prays, "Oh God, do not forsake me until I proclaim your might to all the generations to come." David understands that his days are coming close to an end. He can see the end on the horizon, and yet he's saying, Lord, I want to make sure that my testimony reaches the next generations. He wrote down his testimonies. They became psalms that we sing. Because here's the truth. Faith is always one generation away from being forgotten. We can't assume the next generation will pick it up by accident. We can't assume that, hey, I can't assume that my kids have been to church, all their lives, that when they become grown adults and they go out, that they're going to come back to church. In fact, it's probably because they've been coming to church all their lives. They may take a vacation, right? I can't assume anything about that. I need to be able to share with them why it is that I believe that God is faithful. And let's be honest, some of the most powerful testimonies are not through Sunday sermons. They're not through the great hymns. Some of the most powerful testimonies happen when you've gathered around your dinner table. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to have to give it to you as a homework assignment, which is kind of a bummer, because I really wanted to watch you do this kind of thing. So I wanted to give you permission this morning to do a selfie. But I wanted you to do a selfie video, and for a couple of minutes, I just wanted you to capture your face saying why you believe God is faithful. And then just record it and send it. Not to me, but to your children, or to your grandchildren, or your great-great-grandchildren, right? Because someday, when they're in a place where the yogurt is hitting the fan, sometimes people go through doom scrolling and they start going through things, but they may land on this video that you recorded. And so dispensers of hope, that's the third thing they do, is they record. They remember God's faithfulness because it was God that's carried us this far, and he won't stop now. Dispensers of hope rely on God in the present, because when our strength is gone, and it will be gone because we're not perfect beings, his strength will hold us fast. And dispensers of hope record their testimony for the future because the next generation needs to hear. It's not about whether our church will exist. It's about, will they hear the good news that they matter to God, that they're God's beloved, that they are the apple. We do this because we stand in awe of a God whose faithfulness never fails and whose love endures forever. In a few moments, we're going to come to this table. And it's at this table where we hear and we see and we experience in real time God's steadfast love for us. We experience and we see and we feel in real time Christ's body broken for us, Christ's blood shed for us, not just to sustain us or not just to save us, but to sustain us, that when the things go wrong, we can say, this is what my hope is anchored in. We rely on him in this moment, trusting that he is enough for us. And then what do? We receive the communion and we remember. We go forth from this place not as broken people, not as people who say, I'm not even worthy to gather up the crumbs underneath the table. We go forth from this place saying, I am forgiven. And I have been given a responsibility to go and share with people why I have the hope that I have. Because I serve the one who calls me beloved. I serve the one who calls me friend. I serve the one who has promised to never leave me or to never forsake me. And so we come not because we have it all figured out. We come because we are in awe of the one who put the stars in the sky, who breathed life into us and called us beloved. And when we remember that, we have the foundation, we have the flooring to build a legacy of meaning because it is grounded in hope.